New tonight, President Trump taking credit for the government spending bill that avoids a shutdown, making these remarks as he welcomed the Air Force Academy football team to the White House.
This is what winning looks like, something that you folks really know a lot about.
Jeff Zeleny is out front at the White House. And Jeff, all right, so he says this is what winning looks like, but is the White House privately saying the same, is something very different? I mean, there's a lot of stuff in this bill he didn't want.
Well, Aaron, the whole reason the president was out on the Rose Garden, in the Rose Garden today talking about this was because there are many Republicans in this town who believes that they were essentially defeated message-wise by Democrats in this spending bill we've been talking about here, particularly the border wall. There's not one thing, perhaps more than this, the president has talked about again and again about funding for this wall. The reality is there is no funding for a new wall in this. And that became even slightly more confused at the White House press briefing today, which was taken over by the director of the Office of Management and Budget, Mick Mulvaney, who said this.
We are building this now. There is money in this deal to build several hundreds of millions of dollars of this to replace this. That's what we got in this deal, and that's what the Democrats don't want you to know. This stuff is going up now. Why? Because the president wants to make the country more safe.
This is what you call political pushback and spinning tonight, Aaron. The reality here is that the president did not get what he wanted in this spending bill, that was to fund his new wall that he's talking about. Mick Mulvaney there was saying, look, this is already being funded. It's the biggest increase of border security. Yes, it's a big increase of border security. But that new wall, the one that the president talked about again and again, is not being built with any money in this budget. That will come later in the year in September in the fiscal year 18 budget if they approve it then.
Right.
So all those pictures, all the talking about the wall, the pictures there were actually an existing part of a wall. The new wall, no money's there for it yet, Aaron.
All right, Jeff, thank you very much. Right, so I guess they can't do anything in the wording of the bill for a new wall. They can patch existing wall, I suppose. Out front now, the Democratic Congressman from Florida, the former chairwoman of the DNC, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So, Congressman, let me just get your reaction. You just saw the budget director there, Mick Mulvaney, run out in the middle of the press briefing, take it over and say, this is what Democrats don't want you to know. We're building this wall right now. What's your reaction?
Well, my reaction is, particularly as a member of the Appropriations Committee and serving as a ranking member of one of the subcommittees, that the president's right. This is what winning looks like for Democrats. You know, for people who actually want to make sure that we can continue to invest in healthcare research, for people who opposed his ridiculous, unnecessary border wall, where there is absolutely no funding in this budget to build it. You know, yes, there is border security funding, which is important. We all support increasing border security, but there's no money in this budget to build the wall, and there is also no money for the additional detention officers, so that they can't continue to add money to round more people up.
All right, so obviously what he said today when he came out and said that, as Jeff Zeleny points out, not true. They can't do it right now. But as you say, the bill does have border security money. In fact, the biggest increase for border security in a decade, something the president is frankly very proud of. As you know, Congresswoman, here he is.
We achieved the single largest increase in border security funding in 10 years, with enough money to make a down payment on the border wall.
Again, he's classifying it as a down payment on the border wall. The language in the bill, as we all know, says he can't use the money for the wall itself, for building it.
Right.
But you know, you hear what he says. You hear what Mick Mulvaney says. There's no question as to what their intentions are and what they want to do, Congresswoman. Yet you do support border security, you're saying, and you are voting for the bill, right?
I'm going to be voting for the bill, yes, but they are desperately clinging and grasping at straws here to try to define for their members and their supporters that this is somehow a win for them. But they absolutely didn't want this budget to look like it does. Not only does it have $2 billion more when they were proposing cutting NIH for health research funding, but it fully restores year-round Pell Grants. It doesn't build the border wall, doesn't have detention beds, has really significant resources to fight famine in Africa, The list goes on, and these were all things that they proposed cutting in the skinny budget that they rolled out.
And in fact, you
So
mentioned
this
those
is nothing
things,
short of a
Congressman.
failure for
It
them.
also doesn't cut the funding for Planned Parenthood, which obviously
That's
they've
right.
said they want to do. It doesn't have money for the deportation force, as you point out. It doesn't have the federal cuts to sanctuary cities
And
that
it
the
doesn't
president
have
says he
money
wants.
to unwind the Affordable Care Act either.
Right, so you're voting for it. What do you
I
say
am
to
voting
Democrats,
for it.
though, that aren't? Are they just obstructionist at this point?
Well, I haven't heard actually very many Democrats come out and say they're opposed to it. There are members that are still looking at it, but overall, I mean, this is a really
So you think there's a
important-
big win for Democrats, opposite of what the president says? Because
This
you
is a
heard him say
big
this is what
win
winning
for
looks
America.
like.
This is a big win for America. When it comes to what winning looks like, yes, it's a win for Democrats. It shows that even in the minority, we're able to effectively reach across the aisle, work with our colleagues on the Republican side, and do the right thing for America. But you know, there are millions of Americans that are going to benefit from the really good things in this appropriations bill, and I hope that that goodwill extends to fiscal year 2018. Unfortunately, as you heard the president say today, his real reaction is that he wants to shut the government down in September so he can get his way and do what he really wants to do, which is build that border wall with taxpayer money instead of Mexico's money, cut
So-
NIH, cut health care, and really reverse all this progress.
So let me